Say something. It's like a podcast, but it's a vodcast, so you can listen and watch. It's like news talk or sports talk, but it's life talk, so we can walk the road together. On today's show, Cynthia Yanoff with Pardon the Mess podcast joins me to chat with Joyce Smith and Pastor Jason Noble, who are with the great new movie Breakthrough that's based on an incredible true story of a mother's unfaltering love in the face of impossible odds. Chrissy Metz, Josh Lucas, and Topher Grace are just a few in the terrific lineup that tells this enthralling reminder that faith and love can create a mountain of hope and sometimes even a miracle. Thanks for joining the conversation. Here we go. Okay, we are so excited today, you guys. We have Jason and John in town today in Dallas because they're here for the premiere of the terrific new film Breakthrough. Breakthrough is the true story of John falling through the ice in a Missouri lake and his mother's refusal to give up. Here's the trailer.
Rise and shine. Breakfast is ready in 10 minutes. And don't make me come back up there. This is our town. It's a close-knit community, the kind of place where everyone knows everyone.
Hi, Miss J.
Hey, how are you girls? And we're always there for each other.
Nice sermon, Pastor.
What do you guys have on for the rest of the day?
Well, John has a basketball game.
Yeah, I've seen this guy hoop it up around here. This kid is so lit.
Text your mom tomorrow and tell her when and where to pick you up.
And don't do anything stupid.
Love you guys.
Boys, get off the ice!
We're training for the Olympics, sir.
Cindy.
He's been underwater for more than 15 minutes. It's gonna be a recovery, not a rescue. I got something.
We got him!
We've done everything medically possible. There's nothing more we can do.
No. Please, God, send your Holy Spirit to save my son.
A 14-year-old St. Charles boy who spent 15 minutes trapped underwater is continuing to fight for his life.
I don't believe John will survive the night.
You don't know my son. He is a fighter. So I need you to be the best for John, and you just let God do the rest.
All right, so the premise of this movie is amazing, and the name of it really kind of says what it is. And that's a breakthrough. And Jason, I can't wait for you to talk to us about like the deeper implications of Breakthrough. But can you give us a little bit about the backstory?
Yes, on January 19th, 2015, me and my 3 friends were out on the lake in Lake St. Louis, Missouri. We have a thing out there called bipolar weather. It's where the weather gets really, really warm and then really, really cold at the same...
From day to day.
From day to day. Yeah. And so we were out there just having fun on the ice, and then I got a text from my mom asking if I wanted to go play basketball because that's what I enjoyed at the time.
Yeah.
And she said, I love you. And I said, I love you too. And then 8 seconds later, I fell on the ice. There were 3 of us. One was able to self-rescue close to the dock. The other 2 were 25 to 50 feet out. Me and the other boy were 25 to 50 feet out.
From the dock.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So by then we're fighting for our lives, but there's no way we can get back.
Okay, so John, did you hear it start to crack before? Did you know that it was going, or did it all of a sudden just go?
All of a sudden just go.
Wow, It had to have been terrifying.
So wait, did I miss this? Did everyone fall in?
All 3 of us.
All
yes.
3 of you fell in, but the other ones were able to get out.
One was able to self-rescue. The other was saved by a firefighter.
Firefighter, okay.
Push them out. Don't push them out.
Oh, wow.
John, you pushed them out.
One of them, yes.
Okay.
Wow, that's incredible. So when you went in, it was freezing cold water. Were you stuck under the ice, or were you, was your head above the water?
So I was fighting, and yes, my head was bobbing. I was going from the water line below, seeing how murky and dirty it was, and then going above, seeing shore and the dock. Until my friend later told me after this was all said and done, he said, I was expecting you to come up, but you didn't. What I really remember from that experience is probably just like the ice cutting my skin. And that's probably the last thing I remember. Yeah.
Cutting it when you went down?
When I was trying to fight to get on a piece of ice to stay afloat.
Oh
Big
my
cuts on his
gosh.
arms.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
Is there a period where you were totally under the water, and what were you thinking about?
You're just kind of, you're in that fight or flight state of mind, you're just kind of trying to figure out, am I going to die? Am I going to live? Am I ever going to see my family again? It's a lot of thoughts in your mind at once, but at that time it's mostly, this is it, really.
Yeah. How old were you?
14.
14. Okay. And so what's next? What do you remember next? We kind of know how it plays out, but what do you remember next?
It was kind of like a movie in itself, you know, point of conflict, blackout, waking up in the hospital.
Okay. Did your friend that got out first, he went and called emergency help?
No, actually the manager at the recreational park thing that we were at, he called 911, and then the older sister of one of the boys called 911.
Wow, that had to have been terrifying.
And we
for
actually
them
prayed
too.
that he wouldn't remember.
Did you really?
We actually prayed that that was one of the things God showed us. It was because it's so traumatic, like the 911 calls.
Yeah.
We prayed that he wouldn't remember. And God answered that prayer.
Wow. Jason is the pastor of the family, because and so very close with them. And I know you spent a ton of time at the hospital.
I did.
Even.
Yeah, I mean, and he'd been under for 15 minutes when they pulled him out.
Under the water for 15
under the
minutes.
water for 15 minutes. And I mean, the crazy thing about that lake is it's 50 feet deep everywhere and muddy. And if he would have went down in anywhere other than he went down in 10 feet in rocky bottom, if he would have went down anywhere else,
they would have found him.
Yeah, and he was right on the edge too. They were afraid any movement would push him off into, and so they pulled him out, worked on him for another 45 minutes at the hospital, and that's when Joyce walked in.
Wow.
And I'd only been their pastor for 3 months, so I was
Had
a
they
new
just
pastor.
moved there?
No, we had.
Oh, you had?
Yep, we'd only been the pastor at the church for 3 months. And so I was kind of waiting back. I didn't want to overwhelm them, you know, whatever. And Brian said, "Where's Pastor Jason?" to my wife. And I go, "Okay, I'm there." So I got there as quick as I could. And when I got there, Joyce was walking out of the room and she said, "Pastor, it's bad. Like, he is brain dead. The doctors say there's a 1% chance he will make it. Wow. If he does, he will be a vegetable for the rest of his life. They don't think he's going to make it overnight." And so we took a group of pastors in the room and we just started praying. Incredible miracles in the book. It talks about what we saw. There were 2 angels in the room. I mean, it was an incredible experience. And I walked out from there and I told Joyce, he is going to walk out of this hospital. I know it beyond a shadow of a doubt. He's walking out. And so the funny thing is 16 days later, the picture of me and him walking out of the hospital was so perfect, you know.
16 days.
That is nothing. 16 days.
Yep. So he woke up 3 days in. The ventilator came out 7 days later, and then 16 days after. I mean, total, he walked out.
Yeah. Now, I saw the trailer when it says that his mom came in and was basically told, you know, we have
time of death after an hour and 8 minutes.
Yeah, we haven't been able to revive him, and she just starts crying out to the Holy Spirit and the Lord to save him. Were you in the room at this point?
I was not.
Okay.
I was not.
And
but
so,
I've heard a lot about it.
So she did that, and then she came out, and then y'all all came back in and continued praying over
No,
him?
so she went in, did that. Prayed. They said the whole hospital heard it. I mean, it was a crying out.
Like she was crying.
She was crying out to God. And they said, the nurses said that when she walked in, they literally felt the temperature of the room change. Like the power of God went up his body so strong when they prayed. And so at that point, they said, "Hey, we've got to get him down to Cardinal Glennon." So they airlifted him down to Cardinal Glennon, and that's where I came on the scene.
Wow. So at that point, by the time he had been airlifted over, he had a pulse, and I mean, it was not a good situation, but
it was very weak. They like 8 more times they had to try to get him stabilized before they can even fly.
Wow.
Do they feel like the cold water helped?
No, not at all.
That
hurts? The doctors said it didn't hurt it, but the doctors said the water was not cold enough, and he's too big for that to work.
Oh wow.
And even if it was the cold water, there was 10 other things that should have killed him.
Yeah.
Like his pH level was so low, his muscles were exploding into his oxygen stream, every organ in catastrophic failure.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah. Well, that is just, I mean, there's no other way to describe it other than a miracle.
It's true. And 305 pages of medical documentation to the story.
Really?
Where the doctors have said exactly what the film says.
Huh.
Okay, so which leads us to the question of why the film. Like, I know that there was a book written in 2016.
Yep.
And then a movie later. And so what compelled you to, what moves you to be a part of the film, to make the film?
So we didn't go looking for the film. Pastor Sam Rodriguez, our executive producer, got online. He picked up the story off USA Today while it was happening.
Really?
Okay.
And
because y'all got a lot of media.
We got a ton of media.
Yeah.
Yep. And this was all during the Michael Brown stuff in St. Louis. So it was interesting.
Wow.
Interesting how that all plays out at the same time. And so Joyce saw him on TBN, And she said, hey, you only know the first part of the story. Would you like to hear the rest of it? And he said, yes,
Really?
I would. And so she told him, and he said, man, I'd love to have you guys on TBN. So we flew down to Tustin that April, walked in the green room, and there was a guy working in the green room. We thought he was the green room guy, making sure everybody had sandwiches and, you know, taking care of everybody's needs. And so we told him the story for 45 minutes, went on and did our segment. He went on and did his segment. He came back, talked to us for another 45 minutes. And at the end of it, he said, I don't know if you guys know who I am or not. And we're like, no, you're not the green room guy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we thought.
Yeah.
He said, no, I'm DeVon Franklin, and I've just done Miracles from Heaven.
Yeah.
And I want this story to be my next movie.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And so from there, the book was written, the movie was done, and then we just wrote a teaching book follow-up called Breakthrough to Your Miracle that will help people to really know what to do biblically when they get into a situation like this.
Okay, well, let's just go the road that I know you have to address often is what do you do if you're not? Because that is a miracle, and it doesn't happen for everybody.
It doesn't.
But it doesn't change who God is.
Right.
And so how do you address people who say, you know, I'm dealing with this, I've prayed about this. Does God not hear me, but he hears her? And what, you know, have I done something? How do you deal with people in those situations?
It's a tough question.
Yeah.
Because the reality of it is that if John would have died, we still would have believed that God was our healer.
Right.
We still would have believed that God did exactly what we asked him to do, because we had said, God, we need you to heal John.
Mm-hmm.
And that means it could be on this side of eternity or as he stood at the throne and God welcomed him to heaven.
Yeah.
And if you look, we all die. I mean, Lazarus isn't alive. John won't be alive.
It's a crazy thing about that, about life, isn't it?
Nobody gets out of here alive.
No.
And so death, if you're praying for healing, death could be part of that.
Yeah.
And that's not the final chapter.
Mm-hmm.
It's only just a step. And so I think it's helping people relook at their perspective to go, listen, if you're looking in an eternal perspective, if we're Christians and we believe in eternity, then the best thing that can happen for somebody is that they go to heaven.
Yes.
And that they have eternity. The hardest thing that can happen is when we lose them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I mean, and I think Jesus feels it. I think God knows what it feels like. He lost his son. So he knows what it feels like to lose.
Mm-hmm.
And so the scripture I always take people back to is God is close to the brokenhearted and crushed in spirit. So if he takes your child, if he takes your loved one, it doesn't mean that you didn't do everything you could. I do think there's things that we've got to do to position ourselves to be ready for what God wants to do. Does that necessarily dictate the outcome? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
You know? And so I always tell people, listen, if you're going to pray, don't try to dictate to God what the outcome is going to be. You have to be okay with whatever he chooses to do.
Well, sure.
And know that he has a plan and a purpose.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and trustworthy.
I'm curious, John, what was your faith like before the accident, and what's it like since the accident?
You know, falling into the lake, I wasn't saved. You know, I was really struggling with, identity. Struggling because going through 8th grade to freshman year is a very big change, and going through
John, it's a hard time in life.
Yeah.
I mean, all of us are a flesh wound away from junior high insecurities, and you're living it, you know. And
Let's talk about that. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, we could talk
it's
about that
true.
too. We have
And so I love that you're honest about that. So
going through all that, I really just didn't want anything, God-wise. I wanted to do my own thing. And, falling through the lake, they'd expect you to be, you're holy now, you're God, you're Jesus, you want to be just like him. That wasn't the case. I really didn't want anything to do with this. You know, this was a burden more than anything. But, it took a lot of lessons for me to understand that, God had something greater for my life. And,
like what? Are you willing to share that? Because I can only imagine that, first of all, living through what you lived through, and then having the onslaught of people just like looking at you would have to be a lot for that period of your life. And
there's another piece to it too. He was adopted. It was something he really struggled with. Like, why wasn't I wanted? And I mean, so he can speak to that too.
Well, and I love that. I would love to hear what you have to say. That I have an adopted little boy that we just adopted out of foster care last year. And so when I saw that you're adopted, I thought, I wonder what role that plays into all this in your story too. But there's a lot there.
Having a birth mother, her name's Lolinta. My Guatemalan name is Carlos Escalante Lopez.
I like that name, by the way.
So
I do too. A little different than John Smith.
A little bit. But, one thing that I always try and tell, because I've gotten a lot of adoptees that have texted me since, they found me on social media, and they ask, well, what do you do? What's your 2 cents, regarding all this? I said, the biggest thing you can do is forgive. Because think about this. Your mom and your dad, who are your birth parents, think about the pain your mom had to go to have you, and think about her having to sacrifice you for a better life. I said it took me 17 years to understand that, and so I pray that it takes you less time to do that.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
And so just going through all that, and after the accident, the life lessons you're asking about, I was really big on basketball, and I was playing a very big game. I was the starting point guard. I was varsity and JV. And I got up there and I started having chest pains. Didn't know why, but I'm upset, I'm angry, I have a towel over my head, I don't know why, light's bothering me for some reason. I just hear a voice saying, why are you running from me? So, I went on with my life, I trained.
How old were you?
16, maybe.
Okay.
15 and a half, 16, maybe 17, I think 16.
I was 16.
But, I went through that. I did the recovery process, did all the physical therapy, got everything looked at, yada yada yada. First game back, gym's packed. I have everyone there. It's my return game. I was pretty big in the high school, and first game, my dad's sitting in the second row, my mom's sitting in the first row with some friends, and there's a loose ball at half court, and I dive for it like normal, and I get a knee to the side of my head. That's it. My career's done. I went to the gym, I was crying, I was trying to keep it together, long enough that I could get out of the building. I just didn't want to be seen like that. So I walk around, my gym's kind of a weird shape, so I walk around everything, and I see my dad. He's sitting there in the second row, and he's looking at me, he just smiles because he knows that this is it. And it's been a me and dad journey, basically, with the game of basketball. And,
interesting.
I put my head down and I walk to him, and he's wearing a St. Louis Cardinals gray hoodie with red lettering, and I just cry in his arms for 30 minutes in front of everybody. But, that was my sign of, okay, I can't do any of this on my own anymore. I can't keep chasing my dreams. Instead, I'm going to follow his dreams, and his dreams are so much better. Seeing this now, looking at my life now, looking where I'm going, and, looking at where I was then, God never takes anything He's not willing to replace. And, I get to coach basketball now.
Do you?
Yeah, I teach younger ones, and then I do this. So I enjoy all of it, and, it's a good time.
We had some very strong conversations during that time about His purpose and what God, I asked him straight up, I go, do you think all there is to life is basketball? God has so much more for you. And it was just, I think we have to speak purpose into kids' lives. And that was a big piece of this puzzle.
And to kids and adults. I don't think any of us, I think it's hard for us to buy. We were talking about it before y'all got in. Just one of the biggest things is identity and worth. It's very 100%. Hard for people to believe that you are gifted and you do have a purpose. And
struggle all through life.
We all do. So anyway, it's a good word to get at a young age. It'll be exciting to see just for you, where you go.
What are your plans? Do you have... I asked that knowing that you may or may not. I have kids and I have some teenagers and they don't have a plan outside of next week. So that being said, there's no right answer, but what do you see in the future?
I graduate in May. I'm a senior in high school.
Okay.
And then I'm going to a Christian college in Minnesota, Minneapolis, Minnesota. And then I'm going to study to become a pastor.
Aww.
And then from then on, wherever He takes me, that's where I'm going to go.
Yeah.
It's exciting. Well, I guess y'all are friends for life.
Oh, yeah.
And how fun for both of you.
It's been a great journey.
That's terrific.
And I have a son his age, so I mean, it has been a great connection.
That's great.
Have you? I noticed that it said in some of the things I read that you had such huge community support during all this. People were praying over y'all and engaged, whatever. Have you had resistance to the story as well? That people who've said, I don't know about all that, or what kind of resistance have you seen, and what's your response to that?
Yeah, I mean, it's not critics of the story. It's more religious folks who have gotten jealous about it, those kind of things. That's where the biggest piece has been.
And what about even like the physicians, the medical teams that worked with you and stuff? Presumably there's a lot of non-Christians that were involved in that. Do they speak to that being a miracle as well, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, there were 3 nurses in his room in the emergency room that got saved.
Well, and even the firefighter. There's some great stuff with the guy that rescued you out of the water. It's pretty cool, which we'll leave that for the movie because that's in the movie and it's great. And so as people walk out, and what would be like the message that you want people to get from this?
For me personally, I guess I want them to take away that there's a sense of hope.
Yes.
Hope.
Throughout this whole, in our world today, there's such chaos and tragedy everywhere. And, people are looking for a hope. People are looking for something to look up to. And, you know, if that's God, can you imagine, honestly, how our world would be if we were all looking towards God instead of towards man? Mm-hmm. You know, people that are in higher powers get so much, you know, blame for one little thing. Instead, why don't we turn to the one that can, you know, hold our last breath? And so I really want them to take hope out of it. I really want them to understand that there is still a God, and he's still doing miracles, and he's still doing the impossible.
Amen. For me, my prayer is that people will say, man, if God can do it for John, he can do it for me. Yeah. And that they can walk out to know I can believe God for a miracle in my life. And it's amazing how everywhere we go, how many people we hear are needing breakthrough. We were at a church last Sunday that probably had 2,000 people. I was speaking at it. John and I were speaking there. And I gave the altar time, and I said, if you need a breakthrough in your life, stand. 100% of the crowd.
100%.
100% needed breakthrough.
Wow.
And I think that's...
I like how you put that too, if you need breakthrough.
Yep.
Because that has so much to it. I mean, that just has lots of levels to it. And the breakthrough from so many things, just even the bondage of just whatever past that you've lived through.
100%.
Relationships.
Yep.
Your own expectations or your fears or your worries.
You know, and how
it's
many
a really
people,
beautiful way to put it.
Exactly. Yeah. And you know, I mean, I look at it and go, how many people have dead things in their life? They have dead family, you know, they have dead jobs, they have and God can still raise that from the dead. I mean, and so not just a boy laying on a table, but dead dreams, dead visions, and you know, those things that God can just restore and just, you know, bring back to life.
Yeah. Which goes back to hope. It's a good word.
What a story of the goodness of God, and he's good all the time, like you said. Sometimes we have to redefine what the right answer to prayer is. I think sometimes we think it should look one way and it doesn't.
Yep.
But to see just such the miracle and then the opportunity to share it.
You know, in the movie about control, God, I have to let my son go. I mean, she had to go through it, and that was a very real conversation I had with her about 2 months before that, where she came into my office.
Before you had the conversation.
Before this all happened, yeah. Did you see the trailer where she's on the roof giving up control?
No, we haven't seen that one.
So there's a point where she's on the roof giving up control. That didn't happen just like that in that sequence. It happened a couple months before this all came down. She showed up at my office, and you know, she's like, I can't get my husband to do what I want him to do, and I can't get John to do. I mean, she was just broken in a puddle. And I just looked at her and I said, Joyce, it's time to give up control. It's time to let God take this over. And I mean, she'll look back to that moment and say that was a pivotal moment to get her ready for what was coming.
And to see how the Lord works upstream for us, you know, just in front of all these things.
And she had, I mean, it was a tough word. I mean, I gave her a strong word and just said, listen, I mean, and I'd only been her pastor for a month at that point.
That is pretty bold.
It is. But I knew it. God dropped it in my heart and he said, this is what I want you to say. I'm going, okay, I'll do it. I never go against that.
Yeah.
And so, but, you know, she would tell you today, she'd say, listen, that was what, you know, if I wouldn't have had that conversation, it would have been a different story, I think.
Yeah, it would have been really hard for her to have engaged with that and been okay for him to have gone.
100%.
Yeah.
You know, what I tell people all the time is I say, you can't wait to build your foundation when you're in the middle of a storm.
Right.
You've got to build the foundation ahead of time. And that means, for Christians, that means, you know, she was, like Joyce was doing Believing God. By Beth Moore. She had this conversation with me. You know, God was just setting her up, and she took it and she built her foundation. So when the storm came, man, she was ready.
Yeah.
But how many Christians just kind of fall apart when the storm comes because the foundation's not there?
Right.
So it's a good word to just be able to surrender control, to lean into hope, and to consider in your own life, like, what are the breakthrough moments, and call them out, which I think is part of what she did. And as much as John had literally broke through the ice and was saved, she broke through the ice in her own life and was saved from even controlling, because controlling, I'm just saying, has got to be the most exhausting thing in the world.
It is.
And a total prison. Completely ineffective. Yeah.
But it's, I think too, it's not, we all want to put this stuff in a perfect little package with a bow on it.
Right, but there's not one. No,
even
it's
when
just
you
life.
Even when you get over control, like, it's still a battle. You know what I mean? And personally, from all of us, it's been a battle.
Well, we really appreciate you fighting through.
Amen.
And for you sharing. And I hope people are encouraged as they go see the movie, and just are encouraged, because it really is a terrific story.
April 17th it's released. Yeah. Well, can't wait to see it.
Do we get to sing in this car like the other?
Sure.
You know, like,
is it carpool karaoke?
Yeah,
what do you want to sing?
We could.
I know John loves to do it.
John, knock it out.
I'm good.
Oh, okay. All right, well,
Where's
come back
Donnie?
anytime.
Yeah, Donnie was in here to be singing.
Oh, thanks, you guys.
Thank
Anyway, okay, so y'all go out today, and this was a whole load of saying something that was super encouraging, and we just ask that you too go out and say something encouraging to the person walking alongside you, because you never know what struggles are going on in their life that they don't even that they could use some help breaking through. So thanks,
Go buy
you guys.
tickets for Breakthrough. BreakthroughMovie.com. We'll see you in the theaters.
All right, thanks so much. Special thanks to John Smith and Jason Noble, whose true story inspired Breakthrough, and check out Breakthrough in theaters April 17th. Thanks again for joining the conversation. We love hanging out with you guys. Want to stay connected?
Like or follow us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, or follow us on Instagram. See you next time on Say Something.